of you gluten-free people out there really enjoy a good sub sandwich? I think we all do. But being gluten-free, sometimes it's hard to find a good homemade sub sandwich recipe that actually tastes good and has that nice, soft, fluffy texture that we all like. Until today. Today's recipe is for a low-carb, gluten-free sub sandwich bread. Now, you might have seen my other recipe on low-carb sub sandwich bread, and that's a great recipe. I absolutely love it. But this recipe is so much easier, and it's lower in carbs than the other recipe. So this recipe is not only low-carb, but it's gluten-free, it's keto-friendly, it's diabetic-friendly, it contains no yeast, which means no extra kneading and no rising time. You just mix it together in a bowl, bake it for 20 minutes, and there you have nice, fresh sub sandwich rolls. So tasty. And if you want a printable version of this, then check out my website at janetsdeliciouslowcarbkitchen.com. You can find a printable version of this recipe and other goodies there for you. And if you're new to this channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Also, hit the little notification bell. That way you can be notified every time I put out a new video. And while you do that, let's get cooking. Make sure you stay tuned to the end for a tasty bonus recipe. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Before we start making the dough for the sub sandwich rolls, we're going to first make some holders to bake the dough in. You don't have to make these holders if you don't want to, but it does help the bread to keep its shape, because if you just scoop it out onto a baking sheet without it having a holder, it tends to just spread instead of puffing up like it's supposed to. So the holder helps it keep its shape, helps it puff up a little bit more, and it also helps it to not brown as quick, because when it's just directly on a baking sheet, the bottom of it tends to brown pretty quick. So the holder keeps it from doing that. So for the holder, you're going to need to cut some foil into 12-inch by 4-inch strips. You'll probably need about 5 to 7 of these because this recipe makes about 5 to 7 sub sandwich rolls, depending on how big you make them. So anywhere from 5 to 7 is what you'll need. All of them 12 inches by 4 inches. Then you're going to fold the strips in half to make them 6 inches by 4 inches. So you need that double layer to give it extra support. If you just were to do a single strip of 6 inches by 4 inches, it's not going to be strong enough. So that's why we double it in half to make it nice and sturdy so it can hold the dough. So after you've cut the strips, place a rolling pin in the center of the strip and curve the foil around the rolling pin to create a cradle. Now, whatever size rolling pin you use to create this cradle, that's the width that your bread is going to be. I used a skinnier one when I was making this video, and it turned out good. But if you want a wider roll, then use the regular size rolling pin, the standard size in diameter, and that will give you a wider sub sandwich. But a little heads up, when you make it a little bit wider, you will have to add extra dough to your holders. I'll give you that heads up in advance. So it will make less rolls because you'll have to add more dough to your holder. Either way, whatever size you choose to make it, keep cradling it around the rolling pins until all of them are done. Once you're done shaping the holders, place the holders onto a large baking sheet and lightly spray the holders with cooking spray. Use a napkin or a paper towel and lightly spread the cooking spray around to coat the entire holder. Then set the holders aside until you're ready to use them. In a large mixer bowl, combine 2 1/8 cups of almond flour or pumpkin seed flour. I'm actually using a combination of both. It's mostly almond flour, but I put probably about a half cup of pumpkin seed flour in there because I think it makes a good mix. But if you want to do straight almond flour, that's fine. It's up to you how you want to do that. So 2 1/8 cups of almond flour or almond and seed flour. Then 2 teaspoons of coconut flour, 1/4 cup of psyllium husk powder. Make sure you get the powder, not the whole psyllium husk. 1/8 cup ground flaxseed or flaxseed meal. That's the same thing as ground flaxseed. 1 tablespoon of baking powder and 1 teaspoon of salt. Whisk these together until they're fully combined. Add 1 cup of sour cream and beat it on low for about 25 seconds or until all the dry ingredients are wet. Add 4 room temperature eggs and beat them again for another 25 seconds or until they're fully combined throughout the dough. Add 1/4 cup of oil of your choice. I'm using canola oil. You can use any oil you want. And 1 teaspoon of cider vinegar. Then beat these on low for another 30 seconds or until they're fully combined. Let the dough rest for about 10 minutes so the psyllium husk powder can absorb the moisture. When it first gets done mixing, it's going to look really wet. So that's why this resting time of about 10 minutes is very important so that the psyllium husk and the other flours can help absorb all that moisture. So after the dough's set for 10 minutes, then give the dough a quick stir just to make sure everything's fully combined. The dough is still going to be a little sticky. It's going to still look a little bit wet, but it's going to be scoopable now. It's not going to be so watery that you can't scoop it. Use a cookie scoop and place 4 to 5 scoops of dough into the center of each foil holder. It's going to kind of look like ice cream scoops in the middle of a sundae. I think I just want ice cream. If you don't have a cookie scoop, then you can use about 1/4 cup of the dough and place it into the center of each holder. Again, depending on how wide you've made it, you might need to use a little bit more to fill it up. You want it mostly full. You don't want it filled all the way to the top because it will rise a little bit, but you want the holder mostly full. Make sure you keep some space at the end of the holders, just a little bit on the top and the bottom, because your roll will expand. It's not going to expand a lot because it doesn't have yeast, but it will expand some to get that nice fluff that we all like in our sub rolls. So make sure you leave a little bit of space at the top and the bottom so it can stretch out a little bit. Use a butter knife or a small spatula and gently shape the dough into a sub shape. I just pretty much take a butter knife and lightly brush the top of the scoops until they kind of morph together into one big log. So it doesn't have to be precise shape, but you want it to look like a log when you get done with it. Place the sub rolls in the oven and bake it for 20 to 25 minutes or until it's lightly golden on top and testers come out clean. Once they've been baked, let the rolls stand in the holders for about 5 minutes to make sure all the ingredients are set in and it won't fall apart on you. You don't want to take it directly out because it will fall apart. I've talked before in other videos about low carb flours. When they come out of the oven, they have to set. In any baked good, whether it be breads or cookies or whatever, any baked good that you make with low carb flours, they have to set, especially gluten-free ones, because they have to let that ingredients all bind together with the psyllium husk or whatever binding agent might be used. So make sure you let them set for 5 minutes in the holders before you mess with them. Once they've set for 5 minutes, transfer the rolls to a wire rack so they can cool completely. For the bonus recipe, we're going to learn to make keto meatball sandwiches. They're low carb, they're sugar free, they're diabetic friendly, they are yummy. So first we're going to make the meatballs. Preheat the oven to 350 degrees and line a large baking sheet with foil. Lightly spray the foil with cooking spray, that way your meatballs won't stick and it's easier on cleanup of your pan. In a large bowl, break up 1.5 pounds of ground beef or ground turkey. I'm using ground turkey, that's because I'm not a big red meat fan, but if you prefer ground beef, then go for it. Whatever your choice is, ground beef, ground turkey, or meat substitute. Add 1 egg to the beef or turkey. Add 1/4 cup of milk and stir it thoroughly to combine. Make sure it's stirred all the way through. Add 1 teaspoon onion powder, 1 teaspoon garlic powder, a 1/2 teaspoon dry oregano, a 1/2 teaspoon dry basil, and seasoned salt and seasoned pepper to your desired taste. Stir these all together until the seasonings are fully combined. Add a 1/2 cup of low-carb breadcrumbs or almond meal, whichever one you want to use. Stir thoroughly to fully distribute the breadcrumbs throughout the entire meat mixture. You really want to make sure those breadcrumbs or almond meal, whatever you're using, you really want to make sure that is fully distributed, because you don't want to get one meatball that's got a ton of breadcrumbs in it and another one that has nothing. Use a cookie scoop or 1 tablespoon and scoop the meat mixture onto the prepared baking sheet. Use your fingers and press the meat around to form a tight ball. Bake 18 to 20 minutes or until they're no longer pink. Let stand on the baking sheet for 3 to 5 minutes before you use the meatballs. Now you can, if you want to, make big meatballs instead of little meatballs. If you are going to do that, then instead of scooping it out with a cookie scoop, scoop it out with an ice cream scoop, and then make the tight balls on there, and you'll probably need to cook it more close to 20 minutes if you make bigger meatballs. So it's up to you if you want small ones or big ones. While the meatballs are baking, we're going to make the sauce. Add 2 15-ounce cans of tomato sauce to a 12-inch skillet. Turn the heat to medium and add 12 ounces of tomato paste. Stir or whisk these together until the paste is fully combined with the sauce and it's nice and smooth. Add 1 15-ounce can of diced tomatoes undrained. You need the juice. 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1 teaspoon garlic powder, 1 teaspoon dry oregano, a 1/2 teaspoon dry basil, 1/4 teaspoon dry thyme, and seasoned salt and seasoned pepper to your taste. Stir these together until all the seasonings are fully combined. Bring the sauce to a low boil and reduce the heat to low. Cover and simmer it for about 5 minutes to let those flavors really set in. Add the cooked meatballs. Make sure the meatballs are fully cooked. Add them to the sauce and increase the heat to medium. Bring the sauce again to a low boil. Then cover and again reduce the heat to low and simmer it for another 5 minutes. To assemble the meatball sandwich, slice your sub roll in half long ways. Make sure you use a good sharp bread knife, that way it doesn't shred or tear the bread. Scoop the desired amount of meatballs and sauce onto the bottom part of the roll. Then top the meatballs with shredded mozzarella cheese if you want to. And place the top part of the roll on top. Eat and enjoy. And that's our recipe of the day. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like and subscribe button. Leave me a comment if you want to. Let me know if there's any recipes that you'd like to learn how to make, and I'll do what I can to get those out there for you. And as always, keep cooking.